Hi, Rev Stu here, minister with the Methodist Church, currently serving the churches of Southdown, Redbourne and Studham down here in Harpenden with the West Herts and Borders circuit. That's a long sentence. I'm going to have to find a way to cut that short. Anyway, today, Monday the 23rd, we heard the sad news that the Methodist Church is recommending that all churches, because of the coronavirus, close their doors. So even private prayer is not going to be able to carry on within our buildings. And I must admit, I feel quite bereft. And I recognise that sense of feeling a bit homeless and a bit locked out. And I've been in this circuit only for relatively few months. So I do recognise that for people who've been in those buildings for many years, this must be an incredibly difficult time to not have free access to those places of worship where you have been, week after week after week. Many people have been there for, decades, going there with their family. So a really difficult time. Obviously, put it in perspective, health-wise, it's a good thing, and it's to protect us from sharing the virus with those who might be vulnerable. So always put it in that perspective, but a difficult thing. And I recognise some of those feelings of homelessness, which I've experienced before with various things. Last year, at the end of last year, I did the big sleep out, and that taught me a little bit, a tiny insight into what it's like to not have a base. As some of you may remember, this Lent time, I've been reading through the book of Genesis and the book of Matthew, reading them side by side. Started at the beginning of Lent, and it just so happens in Genesis 8 this morning, I read how in the story the floods have subsided and the ark, raven and the dove and all that kind of to and fro stuff going on. And then the door opens and Noah and his family come out. And there's that lovely moment when they build an altar and give thanks to God. And even if you take the critical, I think fairly accurate view that the priestly compilers have put in a bit there about how Noah used the right animals and did all that sort of thing, that's a retrospective fit into the story, there's still the fundamental. While they were floating across the waters and while everything was uncertain, I am fairly sure they were still worshipping and praising God, enjoyed and taken part in many times previously to that. So I guess the question for us as a community here in Southdown and Redbourne and Studham and the surrounding area and all the churches really, how do we continue to give thanks and worship together, praising God, acknowledging God for the mighty power that he represents and the wonderful love and grace that he offers us while we don't have a building? Now, I hear what I say. I don't think in any way that this is turning the terrible suffering of people who have died and have lost loved ones. And that is something we need to remember and be wary of, because we're still not at the peak here in the UK. But for the churches, there is a bright side. Let's be a truly itinerant church again, because we have to be. What are we going to do? We're going to have to find our friends and make our connections in the community where it is. So if it means we can't hide behind closed doors and we can't hide behind structures and regular meetings and that kind of schedule of things, I think that could be a really good thing. Hopefully, it will give us an insight into those who are truly homeless, those for whom much, much more than just the door of their meeting place has been shut to them. It will give us empathy, I hope, with those whose workplace has been closed, those who feel that many other doors have been closed to them, perhaps in their relationships with others who are a long way away, those whose loved ones are not able to get to them, and those perhaps who even feel that other things, opportunities, aspirations and plans have seemed to have a closed door in front of them. But in that moment of, well, what now? May we find the presence and grace of God with us. I'd just like to take a moment. You may want to pause now and press pause. Press pause on the minister. That's a good one, isn't it? How often do you get to do that? It's boring. Just you can do that now. We're going to press pause, take a moment of quiet, and then I'll say a short prayer about those of us who are feeling homeless and a bit locked out today. Loving God, we thank you and praise you for this day. We thank you and praise you, O Lord, that when you walked this earth in the form of Jesus Christ, you were without a permanent home. You wandered with your disciples and went where the Spirit led. You still are amongst your people, calling us now, perhaps even today, to go out, to live a life, to share your love in ways which are not bound by buildings, which are not bound by regular services, but are free, different ways, feel that doors have been closed, that familiar places, even familiar ones, familiar people, those for whom we long to see and hold and touch, and we cannot, waiting. As we wait, may we know you, O Lord our God, on both sides of the door, and with others whom perhaps we cannot help immediately, but we lift to you and entrust to you and your care, knowing that you are with all of us, each of us, in and through Jesus Christ, who is all and in all. So we offer our prayers to you, in and through the name of Christ. Amen. Well, thank you for listening. Back again tomorrow with another one, another bit of the diary, see what's going on tomorrow. Who knows what has happened? But good to see you, and I hope what I've said or shared today has been of some comfort. And let's go on with God, with that wonderful, all-consuming love that is there for us, even in our most difficult times. Amen. Got to work out to turn it off now. I'm not very slick at this bit. This is when you need someone to do this for you. See you next time.